Well, Charles, return of the Trumpi. It's, if you think about it, actually, Trump is sort of following the story arc of Star Wars. The first three, I mean, the real ones.
Yeah,
How are
well,
you?
actually, in the era before the internet, when I was a youngster, one of my favorite books was The Count of Monte Cristo, and there an individual was falsely accused of something wrong, went to prison, did some jail time, escaped from prison, and then exacts. The short version of the book is then exacts, you know, incredible revenge against those who did him wrong. And that's what has to happen now. I mean, we look, I stopped reading the New York Times, I don't know, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I mean, a long time ago, when, in part because I was at a dinner in upstate New York with my neighbor, who was the editor of Forbes magazine. And he had two retired editors of Forbes magazine at his dinner. So there are three, people with deep domain expertise in business and politics, et cetera. And my Clarissa, my ex and dearly departed wife, was in the throes of being not a Karen, but a liberal. You got to read the New York Times. And she said something at the dinner. My husband, is so ridiculous. He refuses to read the New York Times. And each of these editors said, "Why would you read the New York Times?" And and I said, the only redeeming thing about the Sunday New York Times is it's cheaper than cat litter. So I've stopped. If you have cats, I've stopped reading the Times a long time ago because it's so biased. A number of years ago, I stopped reading the Wall Street Journal because it too is biased. And now these supposed thought leaders from the Ivy League universities, the academics, the pollsters, all these people who got it completely wrong, who are trying to sell us, inflation is transitory, and Bidenomics is working, and Joe is sharp as a tack, and Kamala has accomplished so much in her historic vice. But all these idiots are now faced with the reality that, as Zero Hedge points out, Trump broke history with this election, which was very adroitly managed, brilliantly on message. This is truly a team of rivals that he's putting together, bringing out the best and the brightest of America. Now these same assholes are saying that it's time for Trump to pivot and be inclusive and welcome Democrats. That is not right. You don't welcome, a home burglar into your house,
Right.
unless you're a complete fool. I mean, these people have been preying on the vulnerable, the young, the sick, the old. In fact, these illegal immigrants, they've been preying on them too. Over 300,000 children, and that's probably low as an estimate, are missing. Thanks to Joe Biden and the open borders policy, thanks to sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. Who are the villains here? Not the evil Republicans, but Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom and all these assholes, Pritzker in Illinois, the government in what's left of Massachusetts, all these fucking assholes, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, these people need to be exposed. And if they've committed crimes, if they've been funneling government money to leaky charities, to intervene in elections, state, local, and federal, if they've been doing the same, sending government grants through the Clinton Foundation and other fake charities around the world to steal some of that money to fund the cost of their various mansions and high lifestyle ways of operating, these people need to be punished severely. And their examples need to be set. I mean, Donald Trump did not start an insurrection. 1,500 people are in prison or facing prison because of Joe Biden and Christopher Wray and the people who went after Republicans. Moms and dads. There's a woman was praying outside an abortion center. She's a grandmother. She's in prison. These people need to be liberated first and foremost on January 20th. And then afterwards, there needs to be a reckoning. The people who are abusing the legal system need to, A, lose their law license. They need to be barred from that profession in any way, indirect or direct. They can't become consultants to lawyers afterwards. They got to stay away from the legal system. The worst offenders need to go away for 20 years or more. And the people who are hassling you, the people who are throttling us on Twitter and elsewhere, we've been trying to get a message out that existing charity laws need to be used effectively to put Bill Gates in prison where he belongs, to take the ill-gotten gains that he's accumulated since high school. The man never graduated from college, but is one of the world's health experts, encouraging us to eat shit water and crickets and buy his fake food so he can make more money. I mean, guys like that who've been abusing the existing laws need to go to prison. And Mark Milley, Mr. High-handed Mark Milley, who, while Trump was his boss as president, dared to call his counterpart in China and say, don't worry, I'm in control. I won't let Trump do anything. That man needs to be stripped of all of his income, off of the various activities that he's made in his bullshit approach to being in the military. He needs to lose his pension. He needs to lose his freedom, and he probably belongs in Gitmo. After a fair trial, by the way. I don't want any of these junk ass trials. There needs to be a real trial. He is entitled to whatever he's entitled to in the courts martial or an impeachment inquiry. He needs a defense. He can try to defend himself, but he will be found guilty in any fair proceeding. And people like him who dare to sit around and say, I'm like James Comey, higher loyalty. What fucking higher loyalty do you have, bud? You're supposed to uphold the Constitution, and that's it. You're not supposed to be beholden to Norma Augustine and In-Q-Tel or whoever is pulling your strings, or George Soros. You're supposed to, in your role as the head of the FBI, you are not supposed to be a Democrat operative or a anti-Trump never-Trumper, And the people who are naked partisan hacks in the FBI and the other agencies inside and retired, they need to be called to justice. And people need to understand in future generations that when you cross the lines that these people crossed, you will face jail, and not country club jail. It needs to be the rough kind of jail where if you're a man, you worry about whether you can sit down.
James Comey's got a special area of jail for him. Charles, you're on quite a tear there. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying.
Yeah, and Trump, whoever put together the Trump campaign is a genius. I mean, is a true genius. People at the best universities and colleges and the political science faculty will be studying the 2015-16 campaign, the 2020 campaign, and now this 2024 campaign. And I need to add one thing. It is now crystal clear that the election of 2020 was stolen. Crystal clear, right? We need to compare, and we will in the fullness of time, we need to compare the results of 16, state by state, county by county, district by district, and the results of 2024, and then see how much of an outlier 2020 was. I mean, the vote totals were astronomically high in 2020 at a time where few IDs were checked. And as a guess, in this period, 15, 16 to the present, the population of the United States has been steadily rising, in part due to illegal immigration. And the number of prospective voting age people has been rising. So to have a gigantic jump up in votes in 2020 and then have it fall in 2024, certainly people were engaged in 2024, tells you all you need to know, that a lot of the votes counted in 2020 were fake. And we need to go back into that and understand, if there are examples, people, in the mainstream press are saying, in every single case where there were lawsuits over the 2020 election, no lawsuit found election fraud. Yeah, that's because the crooked judges told anyone bringing a lawsuit you didn't have standing.
Right.
So it's not a lawsuit now. It should be a congressional investigation, a real investigation, where we go into 2020. And once we're done with that, I have my suspicions about 2012. In 2012, had the truth been known about what Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were doing at Benghazi, I don't think he would have been reelected. So, we need to put a finer point on that investigation. And then everybody was belly aching across the mainstream press about Russian interference in the 2016, maybe the 2020, and now the 2024 election. It is crystal clear, because it is admitted, and people in the UK bragged about it, that members of the UK sitting government, the government now in charge of that country, sent paid political operatives to intervene in the 2024 election. That government needs to be brought down. If I were the president of the United States, I would send an emissary to the UK and I'd say, listen, our special relationship is terminated. We are not going to continue to fund you, to boost you, to allow you to have a special role in the UN and elsewhere. If you put, as they have now put, 2,300 people at last count into prison for offensive Facebook and other social media posts, that kind of a government cannot be an ally. We will not share secrets with you. We're going to suspend our tax treaty with you. Unless you reform. And I think reform in the UK means a new election. This government needs to be kicked the fuck out of power. And, England needs to go back, if it wants, in my view, if it wants to be, have the special relationship with the United States under Trump, it needs to think deeply about its long history, about why the United States broke from England, what is important to the United States, and what should be important to the people of England. We don't need a bunch of boffins from Oxford and Cambridge monitoring Facebook posts and putting people who complain about actual abuses into prison. They don't need that, and we don't need that, and not one penny should be spent to going forward so long as this sitting government's in power. Now, that's why I'm not in politics, because I'm not, somebody who's easy to get along with. But this is just an outrageous thing. And this fucktwit who's running NATO now, who dared in the last moments to suggest that he is going to personally kick the United States out of NATO if Trump orchestrates a peace deal in Ukraine. Oh, really, Mr. Root? You're going to kick the United States out of NATO? Are you aware that 90% of the spending of the missions flown by NATO are flown, or approximately 90, are flown by U.S. military? Are you aware of that? You're going to kick us out of NATO? That's an interesting thing. I'm going to kick you out of your fucking job, Mr. Root. And don't think you're going to work at any think tank and orchestrate a resistance against me. That's not going to happen.
It is a ridiculous thing. I mean, and by the way, isn't this what Trump wants anyway?
Well, again, I don't want to be kicked out of something I was intending to leave anyway.
Right.
I think, Putin, a mistake that people make, and I have no experience in politics, but I have some experience in tough business deals. You need to listen to your opponent. You need to try to get inside your opponent's head. What is your opponent trying to achieve? Unless you're willing to do that, there's no way you're going to do good deals with an opponent. There's absolutely no way. And Putin has made an excellent point. Many excellent points, but one of them is, what is NATO's mission? World War II is over. It's long. I mean, we don't need to argue. I hope we don't need to argue about that, right? It was 80 years ago, come next year, World War II was finished. Now, maybe the battle to root Nazis out is still not over. Maybe that's not out. That's what Putin's getting at with some of his comments about the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine. And maybe they're neo-Nazis not just in Ukraine, but maybe in the UK, maybe in Canada, maybe in the US. All right, so maybe there's an ongoing mission to root that out. But beyond that, you look at the West, you look at around the world, all these people who are trumpeting the progress. The world's largest open-air slave market operates on a continuous basis in or around Benghazi, Libya, thanks to Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. Okay? They did that. They broke Libya. Okay? We should be we could agree, I would hope, with Russia and maybe with China, that slavery needs to be extinguished from the earth. We could also agree that it shouldn't just be the US waging war on a drug cartel. We can agree, I hope, that certain drugs need to be, and the people who trade in these drugs need to be executed. And that's a mission that I hope we could cooperate on with Russia. But beyond that, we don't need another military bureaucracy instigating, battles around the world so that defense contractors and people close to those defense contractors can get even richer than they already are. We don't need that. And the people of Russia and the people of the United States actually have more in common than what separates us. So,
Charleston.
I mean, there needs to be some serious rejiggering and redefinition inside the U.S. of what is in America's national interest. It certainly isn't supporting Klaus Anal Schwab and his plans to have us all live in cities and, seek his permission and turn over all our assets to him. I mean, that's certainly not something we need to embrace, nor should we submit ourselves to the dictates of Tedros and the World Health Organization, which the Biden administration, the Harris administration were very close to doing. Right? They were moving behind everybody's back to adopt this UN thing where in a pandemic, we would be subservient in the US to the World Health Organization. Fuck that. I mean, Tedros needs, after we get done with Milley, Tedros needs to be extradited. I mean, this guy Tedros, if you look into his background, he is not a medical doctor. And, his decisions in and around and after the pandemic are atrocious. And his conflicts, I mean, I wonder how much money this man's being paid on the side. And this man was centrally involved with Ira Magaziner and Bill Clinton, beginning in 2006, I think, in theory, redoing the Ethiopian health system. But in practice, I suspect that they were perpetrating genocide against his political opponents inside Ethiopia, distributing toxic drugs that in theory were supposed to fight HIV and AIDS. That's a whole chapter that, I can work on it, but to really get to the bottom of what happened there, you need to have subpoena power. Tedros is, in my mind, an unindicted criminal. So who are all the people who've lined up to support him? One of the biggest supporters, financial contributors to Tedros and the World Health Organization is Bill Gates. Sorry.
No, Charles is quite a tear there. I don't know if you saw this, but Trump put out a video where he's, saying he's going to shatter the whole, disinformation complex and the censorship industrial complex. And he's going after lawfare. It sounds great. It's music to my ears.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, if you spend your time reading, quote, peer-reviewed fake papers that are endorsed by Harvard and other Ivy League universities, and go down a track of saying you can't express an opinion unless you reviewed all the junk in these peer-reviewed papers, which is the way, a rough summary of how that process today works. One conservative estimate is that 1/3 of all peer-reviewed papers are absolute bullshit. Some are, there's some people who get their jollies inventing things and seeing if they can get them through the peer-reviewed apparatus. Actual gibberish. You see a lot of that in math and physics and hard sciences. But you don't need to go to Harvard and get your PhD to read the only book that Thomas Jefferson ever wrote, and Notes on the State of Virginia, or Notes, I forget if it's President State of Virginia or Notes on the State of Virginia. He is the author of the Declaration of Independence, right? I mean, this is a man who I think you can criticize him for his personal life or for other reasons, but you can't say he didn't know what was in the minds of the founders of the United States. He was the author of the Virginia Statute on Religious Freedom, which predated the Constitution and was the basis, ultimately, for the First Amendment. And he talks in this book about, and it's really very excellent and in some ways gripping read. You get to see into the mind of a real genius And he explains that the idea behind or central to a functioning republic and democracy is the concept that everyone should be encouraged to speak. And indeed, the speech that needs to be protected is not government views. It's a speech that is hostile to government views. That needs to be protected. And speech that that the status quo doesn't want to hear. That's what needs to be protected. We don't need government censors. We need I don't know how many adults there are. Maybe start counting people whose opinions matter at maybe age 12 or 14 or 16. I don't know how many people that is in America now. Let's guess it's 200 million. I'd rather have 200 million people engaged, not all the time on Twitter, expressing their views. And if you disagree with my view, let me know. Tell me I'm wrong. I'd be delighted to learn that I'm wrong about something. So I'll course correct. But don't embrace the situation where some fucking nitwit out of Wellesley, with like 3 years work experience, is going to set up a committee of brain dead, non-binary dwarfs and sit around in some room smoking crack and persecuting opponents of the Biden regime and promoting, AOC and people like that as being, the status quo or wisdom. We don't need any of that crap. We need to engage the minds of the electorate, and it's only through that kind of rigorous debate process that the best and the brightest rise to the top in free and fair elections. That's what we should want. That's what Elon Musk wants, I think. And he wasn't even born in this country.
Charles, did you see that Trump's granddaughter, Kai Trump, has exploded on the social media scene? She started a YouTube channel. She's playing golf. I think she's really pretty good at golf, actually. And then she says Elon Musk is like her uncle now.
Uncle Musk?
Uncle Musk.
No. I mean, it's nice to see, this team. And you contrast this team, for example, with Obama's team in the first term. Eric fucking Holder. There's another guy who needs to go to prison. He's the Attorney General of the United States. He lies to Congress. He gets called out, cited for contempt. And his reaction as the highest legal officer in the country is, I will wear this contempt citation as a badge of honor. Meanwhile, Peter Navarro goes to jail. Steve Bannon goes to jail. We need to go back, and there needs to be a rebalancing there. Eric Holder, under the Trump administration, spent 100% of his time leading the resistance at the beck and call of Barack Obama. What were they trying to protect Barack Obama from, and Hillary Clinton from, and George W. Bush from? These are the questions that need to be answered, and they will be answered come January 20th, in my view.
Charles, Eric Holder was defending the vice president vetting process even after Waltz's missteps. It's good news Tim Waltz will vanish into the realm of political obscurity along with stupid Kamala Harris. She'll just be getting drunk and thinking about how great it is to be the female Walter Mondale.
Well, did you see that her stepdaughter circulated a picture of Kamala Harris at home after the election with a glass of wine? I mean,
hanging out with little kids, getting drunk.
Well, if you go back to, now that she's a loser, and frankly, Obama is a loser as well. History is going to judge him very harshly. He was dealt a welcoming hand by a nation that was trying to lick its wounds over centuries of race problems and other problems. Here was this great hope, who had the great speech in 2004. It's not a red America or blue America, it's one America. And he turned out to be a divisive, partisan fuckwad who now sits on top of about $1 billion in a fake foundation that was interfering in the 2024 election, having interfered in the 2020 election, and likely having interfered in the 2016 election illegally, because it's a public charity. It's not supposed to engage in any partisan political activity, nor it and the Clinton Foundation and other presidents. They're not supposed to be organized to create private gain, which means advantages of any kind. It doesn't just mean monetary gain. They're not supposed to do that. But here's this guy getting up there the day before this election and spreading an outright lie that has been debunked by Snopes. What kind of a loser does that? I think we know the answer. Barack Loser Obama, not Hussein.
I think
He's
it
a
really
loser.
bit him on the ass, Charles, because a lot of people have been talking about that and how just blatant and just almost insulting how stupid it was, that lie. But Charles, listen, we're going to head over to the First Amendment Forum right now. People can join us there on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You're pretty wound up. You're like shot out of a cannon right now. So I think people are going to want to join us for the second part. We'll be right back in 5 minutes. Thanks for watching, everybody.